Welcome to IELTS Dragon. Today's video lesson is about the recent IELTS speaking part 2 topic about a person in the news that you want to meet. I will develop a story and make sure that I will achieve the 4 criteria in IELTS speaking. Not only that, I will also answer the 4 questions in part 3 that talk about the difference between news reporting in the past and now, celebrities or famous people in the news, and the importance of local and international news. Join me in this lesson as I will help you talk about this topic. But before anything else, I humbly ask you to support this channel by clicking the subscribe button below or the one that appears on your screen. Thank you so much. Now, let's get started. Here's the cue card. Describe a person in the news who you want to meet. You should say who this person is, why he or she is in the news, what he or she is like, and explain why you want to meet him or her. During your actual exam, prepare keywords as they will surely help you develop your story. Make sure you use your 1 minute preparation time wisely. And the first person who comes to mind should be your answer because you don't have enough time to think of another one. Now, let's check the part 3 questions. I'll teach you how to discuss your answers well in this part. Let us learn how to discuss our answers at length. If you're a person who doesn't love reading news articles or anything that is educational, you should start cultivating the habit of reading now because your knowledge will really help you a lot in expressing your ideas clearly during the exam. All right, without further ado, let's begin answering the cue card. Here's my monologue. I've never been a fan of the British royal family since I could never understand their relevance to the society or even the world. Or maybe I'm just ignorant, not knowing their contributions to their homeland and to the world. Anyway, for the past few months, and even up to this day, the news about Prince Harry has been all over the internet, on social media platforms, some online forums, and to some legitimate online news portals, and that piqued my interest. Alright, before we continue, let's analyze how I made my introduction first. Well, I didn't immediately give my answer on the first line. Instead, I gave comment first about the British royal family. That technique helps the examiner get an idea that I would be talking about one of the royal family members. And for sure, by the time I talked about the royal family, he's already thinking of Prince Harry. Anyway, right after that, I gave my answer and started talking about how popular that person in different news organizations. That kind of introduction is creative, and in that way, I'm already showing my language skills to the examiner. If you can make your introduction creative, then don't hesitate doing it. Now let's continue. Despite my indifference to royal family, I couldn't help myself but fed my curiosity when the news about Prince Harry broke out. I learned that he gave up his royal title and stepped back from his royal duties. And based on the reports that I read, it was because of his wife, Meghan Markle. Although his wife kept mum on the real reason behind the royal exit, she somehow gave some hint to the press about the pressure she had to deal with the Queen and the other royal members, and that eventually took a toll on her mental health. Alright, so in this part, I started talking about the subject of my story and answered one of the prompts in the cue card on why that person was in the news. I did elaborate my answer in order for the examiner to understand the story better. This was the part where I provided the important details of my story, as this acted as the foundation of my story. You need to have a good foundation of your story so that your examiner would not be confused. And take note, that's well connected to my introduction. I already achieved coherence in this part. Let's continue developing the story. Well, considering Prince Harry's decision, I reckon that he's a loving man and a man of principle. He didn't mind losing his luxurious way of life for the sake of protecting his wife. And honestly, it takes a real man to do such a thing. With what he did, it just goes to show that love conquers all. I would love to meet him if I had a once in a lifetime chance, and if that becomes a reality, I just want to ask him how he's doing after making a radical decision in his life, and I want to wish him a happy and blessed life. Alright, I simply answer the two remaining prompts on the cue card on what is he like and explain why you want to meet him. In this part, I described the character traits of Prince Harry and explained a little as to why I believed that person possessed those traits. I also added a very good saying that would best describe the situation of Prince Harry and his wife, and that's love conquers all. The last part of the story was about my wish if I could meet him in person. I used the conditional tense to express my idea, which is very good as it helped me achieve a better mark in the criterion, grammar, and accuracy. The last line was a very good way to wrap up my monologue. Now, let's start answering part 3 questions. And let's have the first question in part 3. Are local and international news important? Yes, definitely, but too much of those is not good for our mental health. I mean, it is our obligation to ourselves to be aware of what is happening in our community and in the world, since having knowledge of current affairs helps us become better citizens. Like, when we are well informed about news on environmental issues, we can contribute in protecting Mother Earth, even in our own little ways. Or when we keep ourselves abreast of the political situation in our country, we get to understand how leaders in our country govern our nation. And that helps us decide in choosing better leaders next time, if they are ineffective. However, too much news is not healthy for us, considering these days that most news are sensationalized, and unfortunately, some news outlets have become purveyors of fake news. Alright, let's study how I answered that question. I gave a direct positive answer to the question and expressed my opinion that it's everyone's obligation to be informed of the latest news. I gave a specific example in order for me to explain my argument better. However, I also emphasized that people should not read news too much, as it would have a negative impact on their mental health. My answer here is well explained and at the same time equipped with topic vocabulary words. Now let's continue. Second question. Is news often about famous people? Why? Yes, and that is simply because they appeal to the masses. Besides, news stories concerning prominent people like politicians or superstars are profitable. News writers never write a story in which it features a nobody in the first place. How could their news agencies make profit from that? When news reporters get an expose of a high-profile personality, the richer their company becomes, since a great amount of news readers will buy their news. For example, when the news about the former president in the US, Bill Clinton's affair with his secretary broke out, all of the news agencies wrote stories about it since it appealed to the masses, considering he was the most powerful man in the world at that time. More and more people get interested reading news stories about his sexual relationship with his secretary, and that generated large amounts of money to media companies. That is how it works. It's all about business. So it is no wonder why the media companies invest in writing or reporting news about famous personalities. All right. Here, I gave a direct answer to the question with a direct reason. I talked about the business behind the news media companies as the main reason why we see famous people in the news all the time. And to support my answer, I gave one example when the media was so obsessed talking about the scandal that the former US president was involved in the past. I explained how that news was profitable to all media companies. The answer was realistic, with a very good example to support my argument. Now let's continue. Third question. Do you think the delivery of news has changed over the years? Certainly. Thanks to the development of internet technology, people can now access news conveniently online, anywhere and anytime. Unlike in the past, in which people needed to set a schedule to watch news on TV, listen to news radio, and subscribe to newspapers in order to get updated with the latest happenings. However, these days, news information is at everyone's fingertips, and it's free of charge. Not only that, news can now reach a wider audience since it can be shared by people on social media. This trend is revolutionizing, but it is also undeniable that it has its disadvantages, such as the proliferation of fake news. All right, so here I gave a positive answer using a very good expression that expresses an agreement. Then I talked about the development of technology in which it had changed the way media present their news and how people accessed news in this era. I used the comparison and contrast technique for me to express my ideas clearly, and that's realistic. Now, let's proceed to the last question. Last question. Can superstars bring positive influence to the public? Yes, they can. They are public figures who are looked up to, so they have the power to influence the people to do something good to the community. Take, for instance, the Hollywood actress Angelina Jolie. She has surely influenced other people of her humanitarian works outside the movie industry. As we know, she has done so much in the United Nations, a High Commissioner for Refugees, as an ambassadress. She takes advantage of her fame and wealth to contribute in uplifting the lives of refugees around the world, and that is more than commendable. Well, superstars are considered as role models. However, not all of them are making use of their popularity and fortune to bring positive influence to the public. But realistically, we cannot blame them because they are not born to be like Angelina. Alright, I provided a positive answer and talked about how powerful superstars were in influencing the general public. I talked about one Hollywood actress as an example for me to express my answer better. I focused on talking about what that actress did to the world. Right after that, I transitioned to talking about how other superstars missed the chance to influence the public in a positive way. Okay, well, if you find value to this video lesson, don't forget to subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Anyway, that's all for this lesson. Thank you so much. Until the next lesson, have a lovely day.